The last video gave a great example on how to author views using the Razor markup syntax, but it also committed a cardinal sin in the MVC world. It created a new instance of the model, an auction, in the view layer. This is bad because it breaks the separation of concerns of the model, view, and controller layers and goes against the fundamental purpose of the pattern. In this video, we'll rectify this by showing how to properly use the controller to create an instance of the auction model. Then, we'll pass this model to the view so the view can display it to the user. Since controllers are the only component that should ever create an instance of a model, the first step in rectifying the situation is easy. Simply cut the variable initialization out of the view and paste it right into the controller. Once the model creation code is in the controller where it belongs, we have to figure out how to deliver it to the view so the view can render it. There are several options available to us when it comes to passing data from the controller to the view. The first is a property that exists on both the controller and the view named ViewData. The ViewData property works like a dictionary object. To add data to it, simply give it the data and the key to associate that data with. So, to pass our auction data from the controller to the view, we'll store it in the ViewData dictionary using the key auction. Then, we'll retrieve it in the view by referencing that same key. Now, when we execute our page again, everything continues to work correctly, and all of our logic is in the proper location. There is one problem with this approach, however. Notice how we had to cast the auction data to the auction type before we could begin using it? This is because the view data is not strongly typed, meaning that all of its data is exposed as the object type rather than its actual type. To get around this limitation, ASP.NET MVC offers yet another property named ViewBag that makes communication from the controller to the view even easier. The ViewBag property is almost identical to the ViewData dictionary. In fact, all it does is expose the ViewData dictionary and all of its values as dynamic objects, which does away with the need to cast them to the proper type before using them. For instance, we can remove the accessor from the ViewData example and rewrite it as if we are accessing a regular property. Then we can continue to access all of the auction's properties even though we did not cast the object before using it. Once again, we can run the page and everything continues to work fine. Regardless of the fact that the controller is using the ViewData dictionary to pass the auction data to the view is able to use the ViewBag to access that same data. While passing data from the controller to the view using the ViewData property and using the ViewBag approach to avoid the need to cast objects before using them is pretty effective. There is yet another way to pass data that is even better. The alternative to the ViewData and ViewBag approach is to pass the model directly to the view via the ViewHelper method, like so. Once you've done this, you can access the model in the view by referencing the model property. Unless you tell it otherwise, the model property is a dynamic object, so it works very similarly to the data in the ViewBag dictionary. Usually, though, you'll want to specify the model's type to get better IntelliSense and access to more advanced features of the framework, features such as the ones I'll be showing you in the next video. To specify the model's type, use the @model keyword on the first line of the view and specify the model's fully qualified name, like so. With this keyword in place, all of the references to the model property in our view will now be strongly typed as an instance of an auction. Once again, you can go ahead and execute the page to see that it still works with all of our changes. The ViewData, ViewBag, and model approaches I've shown so far are the preferred way to communicate from the controller to the view. But what happens when you need to communicate from one request to another? For example, what if you've successfully completed some action and wish to both redirect the user to another action and let them know that your action succeeded at the same time? Since ASP.NET MVC is a stateless architecture, that means it does not generally transmit any information other than form post values in between requests. Communicating from one request to another could be difficult to do. However, ASP.NET MVC does offer one way to get around this limitation called temp data. Temp data is much like ViewData in that it is a dictionary property that is exposed to both the controller and the view. The difference between temp data and ViewData, however, is that temp data is stored on the server for exactly one request from the user. This means that if you assign data to it on one request, that data will be available on the very next request. So, in order to implement the scenario I just described, we would assign the success message to the temp data dictionary on the first request, like so. Then, we can access that same dictionary value to retrieve the data in the following request. Now, when we run our site and access the temp data demo action, it saves our success message to the temp data dictionary, then redirects the action to the index view. The index view looks to see if that success message is in the temp data dictionary, and if it is, it renders it out to the screen. In this video, I showed the various ways in which controller actions are able to pass data to views and to other controller actions. In the next video, I'll show a few helper methods that ASP.NET MVC provides that allow the view to work with that data and offer users the ability to communicate back to controller actions.